Hey there, race fans. It's race day, top 5 with me, Frank 5. Texas Motor Speedway. Everything's bigger in Texas. There are no limits at this track. But you know what was big today? The heat, the intensity, and you know what else was big? A big shakeup in the playoff grid with a new winner that has propelled himself into the playoffs. Let's talk about it. Number 1, Austin Dillon. Everybody calling him the Silver Spoon Kid. Well, guess what? Dillon put together a clinic, winning the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 at Texas Motor Speedway, his 3rd career win, winning it over his rookie teammate Tyler Reddick, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, and Kevin Harvick. Austin Dillon, I mean, we really haven't talked a whole lot about Austin Dillon this season, but believe it or not, with the new Chevy body and being paired back with his old crew chief who scored his first 2 career wins with him in the 2017 Coke 600 and the 2018 Daytona 500, Justin Alexander, are back together this year and have reasonably had very good race cars for the most part. Usually you don't see a whole lot of Austin Dillon, but sometimes he sneaks up a top 10, a top 15 finish. They've run really well this year. I mean, Richard Childress Racing as a whole, with Tyler Reddick coming onto the team, have definitely run so much better this year than they did last year. And Austin Dillon picked up his 3rd career win today at Texas, basically holding off the likes of, obviously, his young teammate, Tyler Reddick, who's a future star of sport, but the champions of Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, and Kevin Harvick. That's incredible. And Austin Dillon, I know people are going to complain the first 2 career wins, it was on fuel mileage and he wrecked Eric Almirola. But you know what? Austin Dillon, this time people could say he really earned this victory. I mean, look, he did earn the first 2 victories, but this time, for most people that have criticized him, he really earned this victory. He took 2 tires on a late caution while everybody else took 4, and he held them all off literally on his own with great restarts when we had all these late race cautions. Like, literally, Austin Dillon drove a smart race. He was in the top 15 in the early portion and got up there towards the end when a lot of other contenders fell behind due to mistakes or getting caught off a strategy. And Austin Dillon was there at the right place at the right time. So kudos to Austin Dillon and the whole team. They definitely, like I said, they've run better this year. And I think they've got a good chance to maybe be a sneaky contender into the playoffs. I mean, they'd have to pick up more playoff points if they want to advance further, because I think the round of 16 is going to be a little difficult for them to get out of. But you never know. The playoffs have definitely had some crazy moments. Austin Dillon could advance to the round of 12 like he did in 2016. So we shall see what happens. But a big win for Austin Dillon and a big day for his grandfather, Richard Childress. And it's been a big year for Austin Dillon as well, especially with him and his wife, Whitney, having their firstborn son, Ace Dillon, and they actually talked to Whitney and Ace post-race after Austin won, and Whitney was so pumped. Ace, the little baby, so adorable. That he was happy too, you know, probably happy crying or crying because he was hungry because he was being fed milk on the camera. But it was just a big moment for Austin and his wife Whitney, even though she wasn't there at the track. It's still a big moment for the family, and they'll celebrate when he comes home later tonight. Number 2, Ryan Blaney. He had the dominant car today. He was literally the car to beat. He had won both stages 1 and 2, and he led the most laps. And if things had gone his way, he was on his way to catching Denny Hamlin, who was on a 2-tire strategy, to get the victory. But unfortunately, a late race caution by Quinn Houff trying to get to pit road and not getting in time and crashing into Christopher Bell and Matt DiBenedetto and taking himself out of the race pinned Ryan Blaney and some of those other guys a little far behind, and they couldn't really recover from it. Blaney was able to get a top 10 finish. But, I mean, just Ryan Blaney, his luck on the mile and a half this year, he just is so good in stage 1 and 2. They just haven't gotten right in stage 3. They almost did it this time. They had the car to do it in stage 3 and win the whole thing, but that caution bit them, and they couldn't do anything about that. You couldn't really do anything about that, but I'll explain Quinn Houff a little bit later. But Ryan Blaney's still able to come back for a top 10 finish. He's got really good race cars. The luck's going to get there. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen, when everything comes into place for Ryan Blaney. It's going to happen. I guarantee you it will happen. Number 3, all the craziness that we had today, I mean, it was just absolutely incredible. We had a big wreck at the beginning of stage number 3 with a lot of guys getting up out of the groove off of turn 4, and then they were 3 wide, 2 rows deep on the front straightaway, and Kurt Busch got a little bit loose in the middle, made contact with Eric Almirola, turned him into Kyle Busch, who turned him into Martin Truex Jr., head on to the outside wall and collected last week's winner Cole Custer, A.J. Allmendinger, Matt Kenseth was involved, William Byron was involved, Clint Boyer was involved. There were a lot of cars, Ryan Preece, there were a lot of good guys that were taken out in that crash. Some were able to continue the race. Clint Boyer did. He got 11th place out of it. Martin Truex Jr. actually was able to fix the car despite all the damage. I'm like, How in the world is that car still running out there with all that damage and meeting minimum speed? Incredible work, though, by the 19 team. And they had some speed in the car today. They just got to put that luck together. But there was a lot of craziness, a lot of wild restarts. And you know sometimes when we have a restart and then we get a caution, you know what that means. Cautions breed cautions. They keep having more restarts and then more cautions and more restarts and then more cautions. It provides excitement. It provides some entertainment. And there were some fans in attendance today, 25,000. I hope they got their minds for it because that was a really solid Texas race overall with a lot of restarts and there was a good amount of passing, and the upper grooves really worked a lot today compared to last year. They kind of struggled. They had to wait a little bit. Drivers complained that reapplying more PJ1 to the top groove was not a good move. NASCAR decided not to do it this time, and I think it worked for the most part, especially considering how good it was in the Xfinity and truck race that we had last night. Number 4, the heat. Oh my goodness gracious. Even here where I am, it's still a little hot. I don't live in Texas. I'm from Maryland, and it still was a hot day. It was a hot day around the country all together today, up in the 90s. It was almost 100 degrees in Texas Motor Speedway today. The drivers, they had a thermometer inside of Ty Dillon's car showing how hot it was inside the car. It was almost up to 140 degrees. It gets really hot in these cars, especially down south in Texas where it gets to almost 100 degrees during the summer this time of year. The drivers literally had to be hydrated, have water and ice bags to keep themselves cool and refreshed the entire race. Actually, after the race, Austin Dillon had to go to the infield medical center because he was a little dehydrated. And in his interview, he kind of did mention, you kind of see it, he was a little bit dehydrated. But that's the versatility and the toughness of these drivers. They're able to get through the entire race, even if they're complaining it's so warm out here. These are true athletes standing this heat that they endured in Texas today. That's true competitive durability by a lot of these drivers. They truly are athletes, even though some people are going to look at them and say, oh, NASCAR drivers are not athletes. When you race the type of heat they did, those are true athletes right there. And number 5, with Austin Dillon's victory, the playoff grid has taken a big turn. With Austin Dillon's win, because he came in below the cut line, he advanced himself into the top 16 with the victory, just like Cole Custer did last week. What does that do? That moves a guy down. And the one person it hurt today, William Byron. Byron was in a position for a nice top 15 run late in the race until he had contact with Ty Dillon. When Dillon got loose in the middle of 1 and 2 and carried them both of the track, Byron hit the wall, and unfortunately that was the end of his day. He's now 2 points below the cutoff line behind Jimmy Johnson, who also did not have a good day today. At the early part, though, Jimmy Johnson was really fast. The car looked like it could contend possibly for the victory. But on one of the restarts in stage number 2, Jimmy Johnson got a little loose off of turn number 4 and hit the outside wall really hard. And they finished multiple laps down, back and around the top 30, I believe, because a lot of other guys, as I mentioned, had wrecks. And a lot of the cars that Jimmy was running around with are guys that don't have quite the competitive speed. So Jimmy Johnson, despite the crash, is still above the cut line, but by only 2 points. If another guy were to win these next couple of races, and it's not Jimmy Johnson is going to be on the outside looking in. And Jimmy Johnson, in their final season, you do not want to see this happen to the 48 team. You want Jimmy Johnson to get to victory lane. They've had good race cars this year. They just haven't had the luck. Something is going to come together for the 48 team where they will finally get it right. Who knows? They could win this upcoming Thursday night at Kansas, or they could win at New Hampshire. But the way the 48 team is, you got to go for wins, but you got to go for more points because the cutoff line is so tight between you and your young gun teammate. And also, Clint Boyer, he's 36 points above the cut line. You think that's safe? After seeing Austin Dillon win today, nothing is guaranteed. Even Kyle Busch, who is 12th in the points right now, despite no playoff points this year. If another guy were to win below him, and another guy, and another guy, and another guy, and it's not Kyle Busch could be out of the playoffs. Nothing is guaranteed at the moment. That's how tense this playoff race to get into the postseason. It's so exciting, but it's also really tense for these guys trying to propel themselves in. There's going to be a lot of interesting racing these next few weeks, determining about who's fighting for stage points to get themselves up further in the playoffs, but who's going to be going all out to try and get a win and get themselves into the postseason. These next few races are going to be very interesting, especially considering the last race to get into the playoffs is at Daytona this year, and that is going to throw a real curveball into this playoff because you could see a guy that's not even close to making the top 16 on points, like a Bubba Wallace, a Ryan Newman, or Ricky Stenhouse Jr. They could win, move up, and you could be on the outside looking in. That's how dramatic these playoffs are right now, trying to get in. It's going to be so exciting these next few weeks. And grab your popcorn, folks, because it's going to be wild. Finally, driver recap. Chase Elliott, 12th place finish. Really did not deserve that finish. We had to start at the rear of the field because we failed pre-race tech twice. started progressing ourselves into the field slowly. Then we took a little bit of strategy by staying out, and that got us in the top 10. And we were there for pretty much all of stage 2 and majority of stage 3. And Elliott on the same strategy as Ryan Blaney was, and Denny Hamlin and Eric Almirola, they pitted before that big wreck happened, while everybody else pitted after the big wreck happened. They were determined to go to the end on fuel when they pitted late. But the caution for Quinn Houff screwed everybody up. And even Brad Keselowski made a comment about saying that guy shouldn't even be on the track whatsoever because he hadn't done anything to get himself to the Cup Series. Elliott got bit by that. We took the waiver on, but we had to settle for a 12th place finish. I mean, it's a good result, but Texas, he's kind of admitted he's not really run well at Texas the last couple times. He's still trying to figure it out. And the other thing is that, starting at the back, it hurts you. And when you're hurt by this strategy, you can't, with the amount of laps left, you can't really recover from it. So it's out of our control. We had a good race car. We had good speed to run in the top 6 at the very end, but we just got to do better when we go to Kansas this upcoming weekend. So, this upcoming Thursday, we'll be under the lights in Kansas. And the way we saw last year's Kansas race, which was incredible with 3 4 wide action for at least 20 consecutive laps, I hope and I believe we will see that exact same racing Thursday night, especially with the regular season coming to a close and guys trying to win to get themselves into the playoffs. There's going to be a lot of guys that will go out and do anything. They'll do the most unbelievable, unpredictable things to try to get themselves a win. So who will it be? Will it be Jimmy Johnson, who's on the cutoff line above by 2 points? Will it be a William Byron? Will it be a Tyler Reddick, who we saw today? Or could it possibly be a Ricky Stenhouse, who ran well at the first race of Kansas last year? Or Kyle Busch to just lock himself in and just finally punch in some playoff points, because he has none right now. We shall see all that and more under the lights Thursday night on NBCSN at Kansas Speedway. So subscribe, like, congrats to Austin Dillon. He's in the playoffs. He finally got a real determined victory. And until then, have a nice week.